There is a very specific kind of pain that comes from being slowly abandoned by someone who still looks at your stories, still remembers your birthday, still says they need time, but somehow makes you feel like loving them was a mistake. It is not loud pain. It is not dramatic pain. It is the quiet kind. The kind that makes you stare at your phone in the dark and replay every message, every pause, every shift in tone, trying to find the exact moment they changed. The kind that makes you wonder if you imagined the connection, if you were too much, too emotional, too available, too honest. The kind that makes you shrink in your own life, while they drift farther away inside theirs. And what makes it even crueler is this. Avoidants rarely leave with a clean ending. They leave in fragments, in delays, in mixed signals, in warmth one day and distance the next. They leave just enough of themselves behind to keep your nervous system attached to hope. So you don't just miss them. You study them. You decode them. You wait for them. You try to become easier to love. And after coaching woman after woman through this exact heartbreak, I need to tell you something that may sting before it sets you free. The harsher truth is not that avoidance never cared. The harsher truth is that your pain often deepened because you kept interpreting their withdrawal as a problem you could solve with more love. You thought if you stayed calm enough, loyal enough, understanding enough, they would feel safe and come closer. You thought if you proved you weren't like the people who hurt them, they would finally open. You thought your patience would heal their pattern. But your patience, when it comes from fear of losing them, does not feel like love to your body. It feels like self-betrayal. That is the part no one says clearly enough. Because when you are constantly adjusting your needs to avoid triggering someone else's distance, you are not in a relationship. You are in emotional hostage negotiation. You are learning how to abandon yourself before they can abandon you first. And yes, that hurts to hear. But it also explains why you feel so exhausted, why you feel addicted, why the smallest text from them can flood your chest with relief, and the smallest silence can make your stomach drop like bad news. This is not weakness. This is chemistry meeting childhood pain. When an avoidant starts feeling close to someone, their system often does not register that closeness as peace. It registers it as pressure. Their amygdala, the part of the brain scanning for threat, can light up not because you did something terrible, but because intimacy itself feels like exposure. Their nervous system learned long ago that needing people is dangerous, depending on people is humiliating, and being fully seen can lead to engulfment, disappointment, or loss of control. So when things get deeper, they do not always think, "I am scared." They think, "I need space. I feel off. Something is wrong. This is too much. Maybe we're not right for each other." That is why avoidant behavior can feel so confusing. Their body reacts first. Their logic comes later. The distance is instinctive. The explanation is improvised. And while they are pulling away to regulate, you are moving toward them to regulate. That is the collision. Your cortisol rises because disconnection feels like danger to you. Their cortisol rises because closeness feels like danger to them. You reach for contact, they reach for distance. You call it love, they call it pressure. You ask for reassurance, they feel cornered. You ask what changed. They don't even know how to answer, because the truth is not a neat sentence. The truth is a flooded nervous system wearing the mask of detachment. This is why so many women blame themselves for the wrong crime. They think, I was too emotional. No, you were responding to inconsistency. They think, I should have given less. No, you were trying to create safety with someone who experiences safety and closeness as opposing forces. They think, if I had just been more mysterious, less available, more chill, maybe he would have stayed. Maybe he would have stayed longer in form. But the pattern would still be there. Because the issue was never your lack of strategy, it was his relationship with intimacy. And here is another harsh truth I have learned watching this play out again and again. Avoidants can miss you deeply and still not choose you well. They can think about you at night. They can compare other people to you. They can feel relief when you text and grief when you disappear. They can keep your voice in their head for months, and still, when real closeness returns, their system can default to the same retreat. Missing you is not the same as being ready for you. That distinction will save your life. Because some of you are waiting for proof that you mattered, and you think the proof will come in the form of their return, their confession, their apology, their sudden emotional clarity. But often the proof that you mattered is not that they came back transformed. It is that they had to numb themselves to stay away. That silence you take so personally. Sometimes it is not indifference. Sometimes it is overload. Sometimes it is the only way they know how to create emotional distance from feelings they cannot metabolize. And this is where I want to give you one core concept that changes everything if you really understand it. Silence is not empty. Silence is a mirror. When you keep filling the space, they never have to feel the full weight of that mirror. When you send the follow-up text, the check-in, the just making sure you're okay, the soft invitation, the emotional labor, the bridge back to connection, you rescue them from the consequences of their own detachment. You interrupt the mirror. And I know why you do it. Because silence terrifies you. Silence feels like death when your heart is attached. Silence makes your mind create horror stories. Silence makes you want to fix, explain, soften, repair. But silence is where the truth starts breathing. Because when you finally stop chasing, stop translating, stop managing their discomfort for them, something shifts. At first, it shifts in you. You hear your own pain more clearly. You hear how much you were over-functioning. You hear the hunger beneath your patience. You hear the part of you that was calling scraps a connection because it was afraid to face emptiness. That is not a punishment. That is awakening. And then, if they are avoidant in the way many of them are, silence starts shifting something in them too. Not always immediately. Avoidants are often experts at suppressing emotion in the short term. They distract, they work, they scroll, they flirt. They convince themselves they just need freedom. They feel an almost intoxicating rush of relief at first, because the pressure is gone. No hard conversations, no emotional demands, no one asking them to show up in ways that expose their limitations. For a moment, distance feels like power. But then the nervous system settles, the perceived threat decreases, and what was once overwhelming becomes absent. That is when your silence changes meaning inside them. Now there is no emotional noise to resist, no expectation to push against, no message to delay. No warmth arriving on schedule. No proof that you are still there, no matter how little they give. And suddenly, the certainty they relied on starts disappearing. This is where dopamine gets involved in a way most people never talk about. The human brain does not only crave pleasure, it becomes obsessed with interrupted reward. Inconsistent availability creates fixation. This is why you felt addicted to them. But the same mechanism can begin working in reverse when you truly withdraw your energy. The person who is used to your presence, your softness, your emotional constancy, now encounters something unfamiliar. Loss, ambiguity, silence. And silence, when it is real, is psychologically loud. That is when they start revisiting you in their mind. What is she doing? Why hasn't she reached out? Did she finally let go? Was I more important to her than I admitted to myself? Why do I suddenly feel her absence in places I used to feel relief? They remember the way you looked at them when they were guarded. They remember the steadiness they never properly valued because it was always available. They remember the safety of your affection after they have already run from it. And now that there is distance, their system can feel what closeness once buried under threat. This is why some avoidants come back with strange timing. Not when you were begging, not when you were trying to explain, not when you were proving your loyalty, but when you went quiet, when you pulled your energy back, when you stopped trying to force understanding. Not because you manipulated them, because you finally stopped interrupting their emotional process. There is a difference. And I need to be careful here, because this is where wounded people turn healing into strategy. They hear this and think, so if I go silent, he'll chase me. If I detach, he'll miss me. If I pull away, I'll finally win. No. If you turn silence into a performance, your body will still be hooked. You will still be checking your phone every 5 minutes. You will still be measuring your worth by whether they panic. You will still be in their orbit, just wearing a colder face. That is not power. That is disguised dependence. Real silence is not a tactic. It is a boundary the nervous system can finally rest inside. It says, I will not keep proving my value to someone who experiences my love as pressure. It says, I will not keep bleeding just because you only know how to touch what is leaving. It says, your confusion will not become my identity. And that is when the dynamic changes at its deepest level. Because the version of you they were used to was available, reassuring, reachable, predictable in your devotion. Even when they pulled back, some part of them believed you would remain emotionally stationed at the door. But when that version disappears, they lose access to the emotional safety net they never deserved to take for granted. Now they have to sit with themselves. Now they have to feel the emptiness they used you to buffer against without admitting it. Now they have to wonder whether they let go of someone rare because closeness frightened them more than loneliness did. Now they have to feel memory without immediate access, and memory without access can become obsession. You know what this looks like. A random late-night text, a vague, been thinking about you, a reaction to your story after weeks of silence, a soft re-entry with no real accountability, just enough presence to see if the door is still cracked open. And this is where women break the pattern or repeat it. Because when you have been starved long enough, crumbs can feel like a feast. One message and your body lights up. One sign of interest and suddenly all the pain feels meaningful. You start believing this is the turning point. This is the breakthrough. This is the part where they finally realize. Sometimes it is. Often it isn't. Often it is simply their nervous system seeking relief from the loss of your availability. That is why one of the harshest truths I've learned is this: an avoidant returning is not the same as an avoidant changing. If they come back with longing but not language, desire but not depth, attention but not accountability, you are not witnessing transformation. You are witnessing discomfort with absence. And if you let your loneliness interpret that as love, the cycle starts again. You open, they soften. You hope. They feel the intensity rising. Their system panics. They detach. You ache. They withdraw. You chase. They numb. Then, eventually, when you finally pull back again, they resurface. Same wound, different week. So the real work is not learning how to make an avoidant miss you. The real work is becoming the kind of woman who no longer needs being missed to feel valuable. That is the shift. Because once your self-worth stops begging for recognition from emotionally limited people, your whole energy changes. Your nervous system stops treating inconsistency like chemistry. Your heart stops calling confusion passion. Your body stops collapsing at every fluctuation in attention. You become harder to manipulate without even trying. And paradoxically, that is often when they feel you most. Not because you became colder, because you became less consumable. You stopped being the woman who could be kept in emotional suspension. You stopped auditioning for the role of the one who understands him better than anyone. You stopped confusing empathy with self-erasure. You stopped offering devotion in places where reciprocity was treated like pressure. You became still. And stillness has power. Stillness is what forces truth to surface. Stillness is what reveals who reaches for you, only when they feel you leaving. Stillness is what exposes whether someone wants connection or just access. Stillness is what returns your energy to your own body. There is something deeply sacred about no longer panicking when someone goes distant, because that is the moment your inner life stops revolving around their inconsistency. That is the moment you realize their withdrawal is information, not a verdict. Their silence is a pattern, not proof of your inadequacy. Their inability to stay present is a wound, not your worth. Read that again in your bones. Their inability to stay present is a wound, not your worth. And yes, they may miss you. Yes, they may think about you for a very long time. Yes, they may even regret losing you in ways they never fully admit. But your healing cannot be built on the fantasy of their delayed understanding. Your healing has to be built on the decision that you are no longer available for half love just because it once felt intense. This is the identity shift most people resist because it sounds too simple, too clean, too final. You are not here to become unforgettable to avoidance. You are here to become unreachable to what diminishes you. That is different. One is still about them. The other is finally about you. And when that shift lands, really lands, you stop asking, how do I make him see my value? You start asking, why was I ever bargaining with people who required me to disappear in order to stay? That question changes everything. Because now you are not standing in the ruins of their confusion, trying to build meaning out of their distance. Now you are standing in your own center. Now your love is no longer a plea. Now your softness is no longer for sale. Now your standards are not punishment. They are protection. You do not become bitter. You become discerning. You do not become cold. You become unavailable for emotional starvation. You do not lose your capacity to love. You lose your tolerance for being loved poorly. And that is the kind of transformation avoidants feel, even if they never have the language to name it. Because the woman who used to chase is gone. In her place is someone quieter, stronger, less hypnotized by mixed signals. Someone who knows that chemistry without safety is not destiny. Someone who knows that longing is not proof. Someone who knows that being deeply felt by someone is meaningless if they cannot also be deeply present. So if you are in that silence right now, if you are in the confusion, if part of you still aches to be chosen by someone who keeps retreating, let this be the moment something inside you hardens into truth. You were never hard to love. You were hard to control once you started seeing clearly. And that is why this hurts so much. Because clarity ends fantasies. Clarity exposes the places where you kept calling pain devotion. Clarity asks you to grieve not only the person, but the version of yourself that kept waiting for scraps to turn into safety. Grieve her, then leave her behind. Because your power was never in getting them to stay. Your power is in no longer abandoning yourself when they don't. That is self-worth. That is freedom. And that is the kind of silence that changes everything.